Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The screen glowed with satellite images, red circles marking targets, voices overlapping like a storm of orders. Men leaned forward, pointing, debating. Her file sat untouched, tucked under someone else's elbow as if it didn't matter. No one asked her name. No one asked her opinion. She sat in silence, back straight, hands clasped, invisible. And maybe that was the point. They didn't know. They weren't supposed to. Because her duty wasn't to be seen. Her duty was to protect. She let the chatter wash over her, words like static. Insertion point, possible ambush, hostiles. She studied faces instead. The major with the clipped voice who masked his nerves with anger. The young sergeant pretending he understood the plan but blinking too fast. The captain who carried the weight of failure in the way his shoulders sagged when no one looked. She noticed everything. She always had. The screen flashed again, a compound in the desert, heat rippling from metal roofs, walls scarred from years of bullets. A hostage extraction, high risk, high probability of loss. Her chest tightened, not at the danger, not at the odds, but because she recognized the village nearby. She'd been there once years ago, when she was someone else, when she still believed she could live a life outside the shadows. But she hadn't told them that, not yet. A voice cracked through the room. Sniper overwatch, we'll need one at North Ridge. Visibility's clean, who do we have? No one answered. Eyes darted. A few names floated but got shot down. Wrong specialty, wrong experience, wrong stability. Then silence. And she felt it, that familiar ache of being overlooked. The bitterness of knowing she was the answer but that no one would call her. Until the colonel, quiet all along, finally looked her way. His gaze lingered, heavy, like he saw past the plain uniform, past the silence, into the truth buried under layers. You, his voice cut through the air, you've done Overwatch before. It wasn't a question. The room shifted, heads turned. Someone smirked, the kind of smirk that carried doubt. She met the colonel's eyes. She didn't flinch, she simply nodded. Yes, sir. The decision was sealed. The mission clock started ticking. The hangar smelled of oil and steel, the hum of rotors trembling through the concrete floor. Soldiers moved like a tide, checking gear, trading curses, laughter too loud, the kind of laughter meant to bury fear. She sat apart, assembling her rifle piece by piece. Every click was a ritual, every part a reminder. She was not there to be cheered. She was there to make sure they came home. Her spotter, a corporal barely out of training, hovered awkwardly. So, you've done this before. She glanced at him. His helmet was too tight, sweat pooling at his brow though the air was cold. He was trying to sound casual, but his voice cracked. Enough times, she said softly. He shifted, unsure whether to ask more. Most didn't. People were content not knowing her story. Sometimes that stung. Sometimes it was a blessing. As she tightened the last screw, her fingers trembled just slightly. She paused, hiding it by running a cloth along the barrel. The corporal didn't notice. Good. Because the tremor wasn't nerves about the mission. It was the memory, the village. The sound of a girl's laughter years ago, cut short by a scream. The sound she had never forgotten. And now she was going back. The flight was a blur of noise, blades slicing the night, static chatter in the headset. Below, the desert stretched endless, a sea of black and bone-white dunes. She watched through the open door, wind whipping against her face. The corporal leaned close, shouting over the roar. Why do they call it Overwatch? She considered the question. No one had ever asked her before. Because you watch over them, she said. They don't see you, they don't even think about you, but you're there protecting them, silently. He nodded slowly, chewing on the words. And if you fail, he asked. She turned her eyes back to the desert. Then they don't come back. Silence after that. They landed far from the target. Boots hit sand, gear clattering. She and the corporal broke off from the main unit, climbing toward the ridge. The night pressed close, stars sharp as broken glass overhead. Every breath burned with dust. Halfway up, the corporal slipped, muttered a curse. She caught his arm before he fell, steadying him. Their eyes met for a moment, his wide, uncertain, hers calm, unshaken. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded quickly, embarrassed. "Yeah, just dark." She didn't tell him the truth. The darkness never bothered her. It was the silence that did. Silence had too many memories. At the top, they settled in. She unfolded the bipod, laid the rifle flat, scope glinting. The village stretched below, familiar rooftops, the well in the square, the alley she once walked as a child. She swallowed hard. The corporal scanned with binoculars. "Looks quiet." It never was. Time passed in stillness. The team moved below, shadows darting between walls. Her breath slowed, heartbeat sinking with the desert wind. She was patient, patient enough to wait for hours, patient enough to kill in seconds. Then movement, two figures slipping along a rooftop, rifle slung low. She adjusted, tracking, finger resting near the trigger, waiting, waiting for certainty. Her earpiece crackled, the captain's voice tense. "We're in, moving to breach. Overwatch, eyes on." She didn't reply with words, just a soft click of her mic, affirmative. The two figures raised weapons toward the street, toward her team. Her breath caught, her world narrowed to the scope, crosshairs aligned. The weight of choice pressed heavy. And in that moment, she wasn't in the desert. She was back in that village years ago, a girl's scream echoing in the dust. Her finger squeezed. One shot, the first man dropped. Second shot, the other crumpled. Her hands were steady now, the tremor gone. Below, the team pushed forward, unaware how close they had come to dying. Unaware of the shadow above, watching, protecting. And that was how it should be. She leaned back, exhaling. The corporal glanced at her, awe in his eyes. "Nice shots," he whispered. But she didn't smile, didn't nod. Because her duty wasn't to be praised. Her duty wasn't to be seen. Her duty was to protect. And somewhere inside, that truth weighed heavier than the rifle in her hands. Why did the silence after a shot always feel louder than the shot itself? The desert seemed to hold its breath, as if the sand itself recoiled from the echo. She adjusted her scope, watching the team below slip inside the compound. Their shadows vanished behind the gate, swallowed by darkness. For a moment she almost wished she could follow them, not to fight, but simply to feel the closeness of voices, the heat of breathing bodies in the same space. Out here, she only had the cold glass of the scope and the vast, indifferent night. Beside her, the corporal shifted uncomfortably. He tried to mimic her posture, his rifle laid out, binoculars clenched too tight. His nervous energy radiated. "You don't get scared, do you?" he asked quietly. She almost laughed, not cruelly but bitterly. Fear. It had been her companion long before she carried a rifle. Fear was the language of her childhood, the taste of smoke in her throat, the weight of silence when her father didn't come home. But she didn't say that. Instead, she whispered, "Fear keeps you sharp, it's not the enemy." He nodded, pretending to understand, but she saw the tremor in his hand. He was young, too young to have been hardened yet, and some part of her envied that. A burst of gunfire cracked from inside the compound. Shouts. The corporal flinched, nearly dropped his binoculars. She leaned forward, scope locking on the gate. A figure stumbled out, weapon raised, not one of theirs. Her finger tightened, but before she fired, a shadow swept him down from behind. One of her team. Clean, quick. The corporal exhaled loudly. Jesus. She didn't move, didn't break her focus, because she knew this was only the beginning. Minutes bled like hours. Muffled gunfire, broken radio bursts. The captain's voice came through once strained, clipped. Hostages secured, moving to exfil. Overwatch, keep eyes sharp. She clicked the mic again. Just one sound, enough. Then came the part she hated most, the waiting. When success felt close, when the enemy realized what they had lost. That's when mistakes happened. That's when death struck. Her eyes swept rooftops, alleys, shadows, nothing. Then movement, a glint of metal far left, another rooftop. She adjusted, zoomed. Two figures this time. They weren't rushing, they were waiting. Ambush. Contact left ridge, she murmured into the mic. Two hostiles preparing RPG. The corporal jolted. RPG. Stay still, she ordered. Her finger hovered. She had seconds. Crosshair aligned with the first man's shoulder. But before she fired, she hesitated. Not because of nerves, because of the second man. His posture, the way he leaned too close, his hands fumbling. She knew that movement. She knew that inexperience. He was young, barely more than a boy. The corporal whispered, "Take them." Her heart thudded. She took the first shot. The older man dropped instantly. The younger froze, staring at the body beside him. His weapon clattered from his hands. Through the scope, she saw his face clearly. Wide eyes, trembling lips. He wasn't a fighter. He was someone dragged into a war he didn't understand. Her breath caught. Her finger rested, unmoving. The corporal hissed, "Shoot him." But she didn't. Because suddenly she saw another face overlay his, a girl's, younger, framed by the same rooftops in the same village years ago. Her sister. She blinked hard, forcing the image away. The boy turned, running into the night, vanishing. The corporal stared at her. "Why didn't you?" "Because he dropped his weapon," she cut him off. The corporal swallowed hard but didn't argue, not out loud. She didn't say what burned inside her chest, because sometimes mercy was the greater weapon. The team emerged at last, moving fast with two hostages in tow. One limped, supported by a soldier on each side. Their faces were pale, hollow, but alive. "Overwatch status," crackled the captain. She scanned rooftops again. "Clear for now, paths open." "Copy, moving." They rushed through the square, heading for the extraction point. Dust trailed under their boots, moonlight washing them silver. She followed each step, her scope never leaving them. But then from the far alley, three men burst forward, rifles raised. Too close, too fast. Her body reacted before thought. First shot. One down, second shot missed, two rushed. She adjusted, fired again. Second man dropped. But the third, he was already on them. Too close. The corporal panicked, firing wildly. Bullets sparked against stone. Too high, too wide. Her chest seized. For a moment she thought she had failed. Then one of the soldiers below turned, slamming into the attacker with raw fury. A knife flashed, a struggle brutal, fast and over. The soldier rose, panting. The team pressed on, faster now. She exhaled slowly, relief mixed with guilt, because no matter how sharp, no matter how fast, she could never stop them all. And that truth haunted her more than any shot she had taken. They reached the extraction zone. The helicopter's roar grew, a beacon of salvation. She and the corporal packed quickly, breaking down rifles, hauling gear. Sand whipped around them as the bird descended. On board, the team was a blur of exhaustion and adrenaline. Hostages clung to water bottles, shaking hands, barely able to drink. Soldiers slumped, helmets off, sweat streaking their faces. No one looked her way, no one thanked her. Except the corporal. His eyes lingered, still questioning. "You let him go," he whispered when no one else could hear. She didn't answer. She just stared into the night, the desert fatting below. But inside, her thoughts churned. She had been in that same place once. A child with wide eyes, caught in someone else's war, saved not by mercy but by luck. And tonight, for the first time, she had chosen differently. Back at base, the debrief was clinical. Mission successful, hostages safe, minimal resistance, casualties none. The captain delivered the report. The colonel nodded, satisfied. Files were stamped, voices clipped. No one mentioned the overwatch. No one mentioned the unseen shots that cleared the path. That was fine, that was her place, to be unseen, to protect. But when the room emptied, the colonel paused, looked at her again, that same heavy gaze as before. "You hesitated," he said quietly. Her chest tightened. "He dropped his weapon, sir." The colonel studied her, his silence stretched, then he simply nodded once, dismissed. She walked out, but his words echoed inside her like a verdict. Hesitated. Was it weakness, or was it something else? She didn't know. But she knew one thing: mercy had a weight, and she would carry it just as she carried every shot, every silence, every life spared or taken. And maybe that was the cost of being invisible. Why did the dream always return after missions? She woke with a start, breath ragged, the barracks still dark around her. Sweat dampened the back of her shirt, sticking fabric to skin. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to blot out the image, but it stayed. It always stayed. The girl's scream, the smoke, the sound of boots on stone, too fast, too heavy, her own voice calling a name she hadn't spoken aloud in years. Her sister. She rolled to her side, staring at the ceiling, willing her heart to slow. Outside, generators hummed. A distant dog barked. Ordinary sounds, safe sounds. And yet none of it could quiet the memory that clawed its way back every time she closed her eyes. Invisible in the daylight, haunted at night. That was the truth of her service. Morning briefings came like clockwork. The team gathered, weary but pretending not to be. Laughter too sharp, coffee too bitter, jokes that cut deeper than they healed. She sat with them but apart, her presence neither rejected nor welcomed. Just there. The corporal shuffled in late, still adjusting his vest. His eyes found hers across the table, a flicker of recognition, of something unspoken. He remembered the boy she spared. He hadn't let it go. Neither had she. The colonel's voice cut through the air, crisp. "Intel suggests movement near the border, not random, coordinated. We believe the extraction stirred the hornet's nest. Retaliation is likely." The map lit with red marks, villages, checkpoints, convoys. One village name froze her breath. Her village. The others debated routes, strategies, deployment patterns. She stared at the letters on the map as if they burned through her eyes. That place, the dust, the well, the cracked plaster walls. The place she had once called home. The place she had left behind, burying a part of herself in silence. And now, the war was circling it again. She almost spoke, almost told them, but the words stuck. If they knew, what would they see her as? A liability, a distraction, someone compromised. No, better to stay invisible, better to carry it alone. That night she sat outside the hangar, rifle across her knees, the desert cold biting through her sleeves. Stars scattered like broken glass overhead. The corporal joined her, hesitant. He didn't sit close, but close enough to share the silence. Finally he said, I looked at him, the boy. He wasn't much younger than me. She kept her eyes on the rifle, cleaning cloth, moving slow, deliberate. And you could have killed him. I could have. But you didn't. She paused, cloth stilling in her hand. Then softly, would you have? The question hung in the air. He didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. After a long moment he asked, why? Her throat tightened. Words pressed at the edge of her lips, memories threatening to spill. But she swallowed them back, forcing her voice steady. Because sometimes, taking a shot doesn't end the fight. It just passes it to someone else. The corporal frowned, trying to parse it, but he didn't push further. He just nodded, as if accepting an answer he didn't fully understand. Still in his eyes she saw it, that spark of something she feared most, curiosity. Curiosity could unravel everything. The next mission came faster than expected. Convoy escort. Simple, they said. Routine. Nothing is routine, she thought. She rode in the rear vehicle, wind whipping through open slats, sand biting her cheeks. The landscape rolled past, barren, endless, yet every turn of the wheel brought them closer to the one place she wished to avoid. The corporal sat opposite her, helmet low, eyes scanning. He tried to look steady. She could see his leg bouncing beneath the armor. He was scared. She envied his honesty. Halfway through, the radio crackled. A warning. Possible IED ahead, halt convoy. The vehicle screeched to a stop, dust clouds rising. Silence stretched thick. Her pulse quickened. She scanned rooftops, ridges, alleys, nothing, too quiet. And then the explosion. The earth bucked, fire tearing through the front vehicle. Shouts erupted, smoke choking the air. Gunfire followed, rattling like a hailstorm. Ambush. She hit the ground hard, rolling behind the wheel well, rifle snapping to her shoulder. Bullets pinged metal inches from her head. The corporal was beside her, face pale, hands shaking as he tried to aim. "Breathe," she hissed, "slow." He obeyed barely. His shot steadied but wild, too green, too raw. She peeked around the armored frame, scope catching movement, 3 hostiles darting between walls. She fired once, twice. Bodies dropped. But there were more, always more. Her ears rang with chaos, screams, commands, the roar of engines trying to turn, the smell of fuel and blood mixed in the air. And then she saw it, the ridge, the boy. The same boy she spared. His wide eyes burned through the scope, and in his hands not a weapon, a radio. He was calling them, directing fire. Her chest clenched. This was her failure. Her mercy returned as blood. The corporal shouted, "It's him, take the shot." She froze. The boy's lips moved, words lost in the din, but she knew what they were. Coordinates, death sentences. Her finger hovered on the trigger. Every heartbeat screamed against her ribs. If she killed him now, she ended it. If she didn't, more would die. But through the scope, she saw not an enemy, but a child caught in war's teeth. The same war that had stolen her sister. The same war that had stolen her. Tears burned her eyes. Her hands shook. The corporal shouted again, voice breaking, "Shoot." Her breath broke, her finger tightened. The shot rang out. The boy fell, radio clattering from his hands. Her stomach heaved, bile rising. The battlefield noise drowned around her, fading into a hollow silence. She had killed him, the boy she once spared. And this time mercy hadn't saved him, it had doomed him. When the firefight finally ended, when the dust settled and the smoke thinned, the convoy limped forward again. Faces were hard, silence heavier than armor. The corporal didn't look at her, not once. And she didn't blame him, because she couldn't look at herself either. That night when the base was quiet, she sat alone in the dark, rifle across her knees, hands trembling. Her duty wasn't to be seen. Her duty was to protect. But in protecting one, she had doomed many. And the weight of that choice pressed on her chest like stone. Why did everyone act like nothing had happened? The convoy returned battered but alive. Reports were written, numbers tallied, equipment logged. The boy wasn't mentioned, not in the debrief, not in the paperwork, not in the looks exchanged across the table. To them it was just another mission, another ambush, another fight survived. But to her it was something else. It was proof that her choices mattered, even when invisible. Proof that hesitation had consequences. Proof that she couldn't run from her past because it always caught up, wearing a different face. She sat through the debrief, silent, listening to voices that barely reached her ears. Her mind replayed the shot again and again, the recoil in her shoulder, the boy's eyes widening as if he recognized her, the way he fell. Every detail burned. The corporal avoided her after, not with anger, not even with blame, just distance. As if proximity to her carried weight he wasn't ready to bear. She let him keep that distance. He needed it. Maybe she did too. At night she walked the perimeter. Sand crunched under her boots. The desert wind tugged at her sleeves. The base lights painted the ground in pale yellow, but beyond that the dark stretched endless. She stopped at the edge, staring outward. Somewhere past the horizon was her village. She hadn't seen it in years, but she carried it in fragments. The sound of water sloshing in the well, the smell of bread baked in clay ovens, her sister's laughter echoing down narrow alleys. And the day it all ended. She had never spoken of it, not to anyone, not even to the colonel who seemed to see through her silence. To speak it would be to break something inside that had barely held together. But tonight the weight pressed harder than usual. She closed her eyes, whispering a name into the wind, her sister's name, the only prayer she still knew. The next mission wasn't announced in the briefing room. It came as a quiet order, delivered straight from the colonel. "Need you for reconnaissance," he said. "Silent entry, no eyes, no noise, just confirmation." She nodded, no hesitation. The corporal wasn't assigned. She was paired with a seasoned sergeant instead, a man with tired eyes and scars along his jaw. His presence was grounding, not chatty, not questioning, just efficient. They moved under the cover of darkness, slipping into the desert like shadows. No engines, no roar of blades, just boots, sand, and silence. Her breath synced with her steps. Her rifle was lighter tonight, but her chest felt heavier. Hours later, they reached the ridge overlooking the valley. Below, faint lights flickered from the village. Not just any village, her village. Her stomach knotted. She crouched low, scope raised, scanning. Armed men patrolled the streets she once played in. Vehicles rumbled past the well. A flag she didn't recognize flapped from the mosque roof. The sergeant whispered, "Movement confirmed," marking coordinates. His pen scratched paper. Her eyes stayed on the square. And then a doorway, a shadow within. She froze. A girl stood there, no older than 10, barefoot, holding a tin pail. Her chest clenched. The girl stepped into the square, filling the pail at the well. Soldiers ignored her. She ignored them, as if survival had made her invisible too. The sight gutted her, because it was her, years ago, the same well, the same fear hidden behind small tasks. Her hand trembled against the rifle. The sergeant muttered, "Poor kids, wrong place to be born." She said nothing, because if she spoke, her voice would break. They returned to base with their report. The colonel studied the notes, then her face. His gaze was heavy, deliberate. "You knew the place," he said quietly. She stiffened, "Sir." "You recognized it. I saw your reaction." Her throat went dry. She forced her eyes steady. "Just another village, sir." The colonel didn't believe her. She could see it in his silence. But he didn't press. He simply dismissed her, the weight of his unspoken suspicion following her out of the room. Back in the barracks, the corporal finally approached. His voice was low, uncertain. "They say we're going back." She looked up. "To the village," he said. Her chest tightened. "They say it's going to be big," he added. His eyes searched hers as if looking for reassurance, for something solid to hold on to. She couldn't give it, not tonight. Instead, she simply said, "Then we prepare." But inside, panic bloomed. Because returning there meant more than a mission. It meant facing ghosts she had buried too deep, too long. The night before deployment, she couldn't sleep. She sat outside again, rifle balanced across her knees, staring at the stars. The corporal joined her. This time he sat closer. After a long silence, he whispered, "You were right about fear. It keeps you sharp, but it eats at you." She glanced at him. His jaw was clenched, his eyes wet though he tried to hide it. "You lost someone?" she asked softly. He nodded barely. "Brother. Convoy hit 2 years ago. I wasn't there. Should have been. Survivor's guilt, they call it." She listened. His pain was raw, unpolished, unshielded. It was strange, hearing someone speak it aloud when she had buried her so deep. After a pause, he asked, "What about you? You ever lose someone?" Her throat closed. Words stuck. For a moment she almost told him, almost spoke her sister's name aloud, but then she swallowed it back, burying it again. "Yes," she whispered, "just that, nothing more." He nodded, as if that answer was enough. But it was not for her. Deployment dawned under a blood-red sunrise. The team loaded gear, faces grim. Engines rumbled, blades spun, the air thick with dust and tension. She climbed aboard, heart pounding harder than usual, not from fear of death but fear of recognition. What if someone in that village remembered her? What if her past collided with her present? The corporal sat beside her, silent, hands gripping his rifle too tight. As the helicopter lifted, she stared out over the desert. The horizon stretched wide, endless, but all she saw was one small village, one doorway, one girl with a tin pail, and one truth pressing heavier with every mile they closed. She wasn't just returning as a soldier. She was returning as someone who had once been a child there, someone who had once been saved, and who had failed to save another. The mission was about to collide with the past, and she wasn't sure if she was strong enough to stand when it did. Why did the village look smaller than she remembered? The helicopter circled wide before setting down. From above, the rooftops seemed fragile, like they could crumble with a touch. The well in the square looked like a dot. The alleys, once endless to a child's eyes, were narrow threads now. She hadn't been here since the day everything ended, since smoke and fire swallowed her childhood. And now she was back, not as the barefoot girl she once was, but as a shadow sent to protect others. As her boots hit the ground, dust rose, carrying scents she thought she'd forgotten: clay, bread, smoke. They slammed into her chest like fists. The corporal glanced at her. He didn't know. None of them did, and she would keep it that way. Because if they knew, she wouldn't be invisible anymore. She'd be compromised, weak, broken. And she couldn't afford that, not here. The mission was clear. Secure the village, identify threats, stabilize until reinforcements arrived. Clear on paper. But nothing was clear in her chest. She moved with the squad, rifle raised, scanning rooftops. Every corner was familiar. Every wall carried memories. Here, where she scraped her knee chasing her sister. There, where her father carried her on his shoulders. The corner where her mother bought fruit from the market. Each step felt like a betrayal. The corporal whispered, "Looks quiet." She didn't answer. Quiet was never safe. And then a sound. Children's laughter. It cut through the air, light, fragile, haunting. She froze. The corporal did too. Down the alley, two girls darted past, barefoot, giggling, a ragged ball bouncing between them. For a heartbeat, time shattered. She saw herself and her sister in those girls, running, laughing, before the war devoured them. Her breath caught, her vision blurred. The corporal whispered, "Hey, you okay?" She nodded quickly, forcing steel into her voice, eyes forward. They moved on, but the laughter followed her, echoing against old wounds. By mid-afternoon, the squad had established a perimeter. Locals watched from doorways, eyes wary, lips tight. Some whispered, some spat, some just stared with hollow resignation. She kept her head down, scanning rooftops, alleys, windows. But she felt their eyes on her, heavy, sharp, searching. And then it happened. An old woman stepped from a doorway, leaning on a stick. Her hair was silver, her face carved by time. But her eyes locked onto hers with sudden recognition. The soldier froze. The woman's lips parted, forming a name, her name. Her heart seized. She looked away sharply, moving past, pretending she hadn't heard. But the damage was done. The past had cracked open. That night they fortified inside the schoolhouse. Walls scarred by bullets, desks pushed aside, maps spread on tables. The air smelled of chalk and dust. The captain briefed, possible insurgent reinforcements by dawn. Stay alert, hold position. She barely heard him. Her hands trembled as she disassembled her rifle, not from fear of the enemy but from fear of recognition. The old woman, the name, the whisper of who she was before. The corporal sat across from her, watching. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His eyes carried questions. Finally he said softly, "This place, it's different for you, isn't it?" She froze, cloth halfway down the barrel. He leaned closer, voice low. I see it in your eyes. Every corner here means something to you. Her throat tightened. For a moment she wanted to tell him, to unburden, to speak the truth she had buried. But then she swallowed it back. You're imagining things. His gaze lingered, heavy with doubt, but he didn't press. Not yet. Sleep was impossible. She lay awake, staring at cracked ceilings, listening to distant dogs bark, to the whisper of sand against the windows. And then a different sound. Footsteps soft, measured, too careful. She sat up instantly, rifle in hand. Moving like shadow, she slipped to the doorway, peering into the street. There, a figure near the square, crouched by the well, not a soldier, not a villager fetching water, movements too deliberate. She raised her scope, heart hammering. Wires. Explosives. Her breath caught. The corporal stirred behind her. What is it? She motioned him silent, eyes never leaving the scope. The figure's hands worked fast, planting, wiring, setting a trap where children fetched water, where her sister once laughed. Her chest burned, her finger tightened. One shot, clean, quick, done. But she hesitated. The face turned, younger than she expected, 17 maybe, thin, scared, desperate. A child forced into war, just like the boy she had killed. Her vision blurred. Memories collided, her sister at the well, the boy on the ridge, the old woman's whisper. The corporal hissed, take him. Her heart thundered. She wanted to, she needed to, but she couldn't. Because in that moment, through the scope, she saw herself. Her hand trembled. She lowered the rifle. The corporal gasped, what are you doing? Not yet, she whispered. Not yet, he's planting bombs. She shook her head, voice breaking. If I kill every child they send, this war never ends. It just replaces faces. The corporal stared at her, disbelief and anger mixing. But before he could argue, shouts erupted from the other side of the square. The squad had seen. Shots rang out. The boy fell, explosives scattering. She flinched, bile rising. The shot wasn't hers, but the guilt still was. Dawn came with smoke. Insurgents attacked at first light. Gunfire rattled, mortars whistled, the schoolhouse shook. She fought with precision, every shot deliberate. But her hands shook between bursts, her mind clouded by the faces of those she hadn't saved, those she had spared, those she had killed. Beside her, the corporal fought too, his voice raw with fear and fury. At one point he shouted over the gunfire, why are we even here? The question ripped at her. She wanted to answer. She wanted to say, because this was once my home, because once I was that child you see in their eyes, because once I lost everything here. But she said nothing, she just kept firing. By midday the attack broke, bodies lay scattered, smoke rose from rooftops, the square was silent again. The squad regrouped, battered but alive. The captain called it a victory. She didn't. Because victories didn't feel like this. Victories didn't feel like ashes in the mouth, ghosts in every corner, a past clawing its way back to life. As she looked over the village, her village, she realized the truth she had buried all these years. She hadn't come back as a soldier. She had come back as a ghost. And ghosts didn't win wars. They just haunted them. Why did he keep staring at her? The firefight had ended hours ago, the smoke cleared, the bodies buried under tarps. But the corporal hadn't stopped looking at her, not with accusation, not with hatred, but with something worse. Curiosity. He had seen her lower her rifle. He had seen her hesitate. He had seen something break inside her. And in this world, hesitation wasn't invisible. It was deadly. The squad spent the day repairing defenses. Shovels struck dirt, sandbags piled up, sweat mingled with dust. But she felt none of it. Her body moved mechanical, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the boy at the well, the woman whispering her name, the laughter of children. And the corporal's eyes, always the corporal's eyes. When the captain ordered her to check rooftops, she was almost grateful. Distance was safer. She climbed the narrow stairwell of a crumbling house, rifle slung, steps light. The rooftop spread before her, broken tiles, a rusted satellite dish, the wide stretch of desert beyond. For a moment she let herself breathe. The air smelled of sun-baked stone, acrid smoke, faint bread rising from unseen ovens. Sounds drifted, hammering voices, a baby crying somewhere, life clawing through ruins. She crouched low, scanning with her scope. Nothing moved but a stray dog sniffing trash. And then footsteps behind her. She didn't turn, she knew who it was. The corporal sat down beside her, legs stretched out, rifle across his knees. For a while he said nothing, just sat there squinting at the horizon. Finally he spoke. You knew that boy wasn't just an enemy. Her jaw tightened. He was planting bombs. You could have stopped him. I could have. Silence. The wind brushed across the roof, carrying sand. He looked at her, his voice softer now. Why didn't you? Her throat burned. She almost told him. She almost let it all out. The truth of who she was, what this place meant, why every face here tore her apart. But she didn't. Instead, she said, because war eats the young first, and I'm tired of feeding it. His eyes searched hers as if peeling layers, but he didn't push, not yet. That night the village gathered in the square. Lanterns lit shadows across walls, children clung to mothers, men spoke in low, hard voices. The squad kept their rifles slung, a wall of presence more than power. She stood near the edge, half in shadow, watching. The villagers didn't look at the captain or the sergeant or the corporal. They looked at her. Whispers rose, eyes widened. Recognition. She shrank into her collar, pulling the brim of her cap lower. But it wasn't enough. The old woman from before shuffled closer, her stick tapping against stones. Child, she whispered, voice trembling, it is you. Her stomach twisted. The corporal glanced sharply at her, hearing every word. The woman reached out, fingers trembling, brushing the sleeve of her uniform. I thought you were gone, that the fire took you, but you came back. Her breath hitched. She stepped back, shaking her head. You're mistaken. But the woman's eyes shone. No, I know those eyes, I know the scar. Her hand rose unconsciously to her cheek, the faint line, the one she never spoke of. The corporal's gaze burned into her. He didn't speak, but his silence demanded answers. She turned quickly, walking away, leaving the whispers to ripple behind her. Her boots struck stone too hard, her chest too tight. Sleep didn't come that night. She lay in the schoolhouse, listening to her squad breathe, to my scuttle in walls, to the weight of the past pressing down. She wanted to tell someone, to unburden, to be seen just once, not as a soldier, not as a ghost, but as herself. But every time the words reached her lips, fear swallowed them back. Because if she told the truth, she would lose her invisibility. And invisibility was the only shield she had left. Still, the corporal's eyes wouldn't leave her. They lingered in the dark, even when he slept. At dawn, a patrol, she and the corporal, just the two of them through winding alleys and broken streets. The air was sharp, morning cool. Goats bleated somewhere. A boy ran past carrying bread. The corporal finally broke the silence. How long are you going to keep lying? Her heart skipped. About what? About this place, about who you are here. She froze mid-step. He faced her, jaw tight, eyes steady. The old woman knew you, the way you look at these streets, the way you hesitated. You're not just here on orders. This is your home, isn't it? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Words clawed up but stuck in her throat. Yes, she whispered finally, voice shaking. It was once. The corporal's breath caught. My family lived here, she said, words breaking free now, spilling like a wound torn open. Until the war came, until the fire, until I was the only one left. Silence pressed heavy between them. The corporal's face softened, disbelief giving way to something else. Pity, pain, understanding. She hated it. "Don't look at me like that," she snapped. But he shook his head. "I'm not. I'm just trying to understand how you carry it." She turned away, shoulders rigid. I bury it, and I do my duty, that's all." He didn't answer, but the weight of what she'd revealed hung thick in the air, heavier than any rifle. By evening, word had spread. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. Villagers pointed, children stared, some faces lit with hope, others darkened with suspicion. The captain noticed, pulled her aside, his voice was low, sharp. "What's going on here?" She forced her face blank. "Nothing, sir." "Don't lie to me, soldier. These people know you." She swallowed hard. "I grew up here." The captain's jaw clenched. "And you didn't think to mention that before." It wasn't relevant to the mission. His eyes narrowed. The hell it was. For a long beat, he just studied her. Then he leaned in, voice harsh. "Whatever this is, you better keep it locked down, because if it compromises us, it compromises everything. Understood?" Her chest tightened. She nodded. Understood. But inside, she knew it was too late. The past wasn't locked down anymore. It was loose, spreading, dangerous. And the more they looked at her, villagers, soldiers, even the corporal, the less invisible she became. That night when the village slept, she sat alone on the rooftop again. The stars spread endless above, the desert stretching silent below. Her rifle lay beside her, untouched. She pressed her face into her hands, whispering to herself, "I didn't come here to be seen. I came here to protect, that's all." But the words rang hollow. Because deep down she knew the truth. Protecting meant being seen. And being seen meant being vulnerable. And vulnerability was the one thing she swore she would never allow again. Why were they chanting her name? It started with one child, a boy with dust-streaked cheeks and a voice too loud for the quiet square. He shouted it clear, sharp like a bell. Her name, her real name. Not rank, not title, not call sign. The name she thought she had buried under years of silence. And then others joined. Women murmured it, men repeated it, children giggled it, until the whole square was whispering, echoing, singing it. Her squad froze, weapons half raised, confusion thick in the air. The corporal turned sharply toward her, eyes wide with the same question that burned inside her. What did this mean? The captain was furious. He dragged her into the schoolhouse, slamming the door behind them. His face was red, jaw tight, voice a razor. "You lied to me." Her pulse thudded. "I didn't." "Don't." His finger jabbed at her chest. "These people don't see a soldier anymore. They see a savior. They see something you can't possibly deliver. And when you fail them, it's not just your life on the line. It's all of ours." She clenched her fist, struggling for air. "I never asked for this." "Doesn't matter. It's here now. And you better figure out what to do with it before it eats us alive." The words slammed into her harder than gunfire. Because deep down she knew he was right. That night she walked the alleys alone. Lanterns flickered in windows, dogs barked low. The smell of spice and smoke lingered. Everywhere she passed, doors cracked open. Eyes followed, faces whispered. Some smiled with awe, some glared with suspicion. She felt none of it belonged to her. Not the reverence, not the hate. She was just a soldier, just someone doing her job. She wasn't their savior. She wasn't anyone's savior. But when she passed the old woman again, bent on her stick, the words cut her like a blade. "You were born here. This place remembers its children." Her throat tightened. "I stopped being a child the day the fire came." The woman's eyes softened. "That doesn't erase your roots, it makes them deeper." She turned quickly, walking away. But the words followed, heavy and unshakable. By dawn, the insurgents struck again, harder this time. Mortars shattered rooftops. Gunfire ricocheted through alleys. The squad scrambled, shouting orders, dragging villagers to cover. She moved like instinct, rifle raised, heart hammering. But every face she saw wasn't just a civilian, it was memory. Shadows of her family, reflections of who she used to be. She caught sight of the corporal across the square, firing into windows, shouting for children to run. He moved with fury, with desperation. And then an explosion. Dust swallowed him whole. Her heart seized. Corporal. She sprinted, leaping rubble, lungs tearing. She found him half buried, coughing blood, his leg twisted at an impossible angle. His hand grabbed hers, iron grip. His eyes locked onto hers, fierce, even through pain. "You can't keep hiding anymore," he gasped. "They need to know who you are, why you fight." Her vision blurred. She wanted to deny it, to bury it again. But his grip held her, demanding. "Promise me," he rasped. Her lips trembled. "I promise." His hand fell limp, his eyes closed. For a heartbeat she thought he was gone, but he still breathed faint, shallow. Still alive. She screamed for a medic, her voice breaking through the chaos. But even as they dragged him away, his words echoed inside her. "You can't keep hiding anymore." The battle raged for hours, and when it finally ended, the village was scarred again. Smoke rose, ash fell like snow. The squad gathered in the schoolhouse, battered, bloody, shaken. The captain stood silent for a long time, staring at his men. Then his gaze turned to her. "Do you want to tell them," he asked quietly, "or should I?" Her stomach twisted. "Tell them what?" "The truth." Silence crashed heavy across the room. Every soldier looked at her now, questioning, searching, waiting. Her breath caught. The walls closed in. She wanted to disappear, to melt back into shadow, to reclaim invisibility. But she remembered the corporal's grip, his words, his pain. She stood slowly, her voice shook. "This was my home, my family lived here until the war took them." Gasps, whispers, eyes widened. She forced herself to continue, even as tears threatened. "I came back as a soldier, not to be seen, not to be remembered, just to protect. That's all I ever wanted." The room was silent. Then the sergeant spoke, low, steady. "You should have told us." Her heart sank. But then he added, softer, "We would have understood." Her eyes burned, she couldn't speak. The squad's perception shifted after that. Not distrust, not rejection, something quieter, heavier. When she passed them now, they didn't just see a soldier. They saw weight, history, a burden they couldn't imagine carrying. And the villagers, their whispers grew louder. Some called her hope, others called her cursed. Some begged for her protection, others demanded she leave. She became both shield and target. Exactly what she had feared. That night she sat beside the corporal's bed, watching his shallow breaths. His face was pale, his body broken, but his words still lived in her head. "You can't keep hiding anymore." She touched his hand lightly, whispering into the silence. "I didn't want this, I just wanted to disappear." Her voice cracked, but maybe disappearing was never my choice. Tears slid down her cheeks, silent, unrelenting. Outside, the village murmured her name again, some with reverence, some with anger. And she realized something chilling. The mission wasn't just about defending a village anymore. The mission had become her. And there was no way back. Why was it so quiet? The village lay under a strange stillness, too still. No dogs barking, no children playing, no vendors calling, only the whisper of wind through broken walls. She knew that kind of silence, the kind that came before death. The captain felt it too, his jaw clenched as he scanned the horizon. "They'll come again," he muttered. Everyone knew it. The insurgents had lost twice. They wouldn't leave it there. Not with the village rallying around a soldier they called their own, not with her name on every lip. And she knew something else too. They weren't coming for the village anymore. They were coming for her. That night she walked the perimeter alone. The moon hung low, the sand silver beneath its light. Her boots crunched softly. Her rifle was steady, but her heart was. She thought of the corporal lying pale in the infirmary, fighting for breath. She thought of the old woman's trembling voice, calling her child. She thought of the whispers, the chants, the villagers clinging to her like she was salvation. And she thought of her family. Her sister's laughter at the well, her father's strong shoulders, her mother's soft hands, faces carved into memory, burned into ash. She whispered to the night, "I don't want to be seen." But the night didn't answer. The attack came just before dawn. Explosions ripped through the eastern wall. Shouts tore through alleys. The squad leapt into position, rifles cracking, voices hoarse. She ran with them, but this time the fight felt different. Every enemy face that emerged from smoke had one target, her. Their eyes burned, their rifles aimed, their fury concentrated. Bullets ripped past, stones shattered. She moved fast, precise, cutting them down. But for every one that fell, two more emerged. The captain shouted over the chaos. "They want you. They think if you fall, the village falls with you." Her chest clenched. It was true. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was the symbol, the shield, the reason they fought. And the reason they would die. Amid the chaos, a child's scream pierced the square. She whipped around. A girl no older than her sister had been, trapped behind a collapsed wall, rubble pinning her leg. Smoke swirled. Enemy fighters advanced. Her squad was pinned down, unable to move. It was her, only her. Her body moved before her mind did. She sprinted, weaving through gunfire, sliding across stone. She reached the girl, heaving rubble with bare hands, lungs burning. "Hold on," she gasped. "I've got you." The girl's wide eyes locked onto hers, terrified, trusting. Bullets struck closer. She pulled the child free, cradling her against her chest. And in that moment, as the girl clung to her, she saw her sister again, saw what she'd lost, saw why she'd stayed invisible for so long, and why she couldn't anymore. Gunfire closed in. Fighters shouted, surrounding. She crouched over the child, shielding her with her body, ready for the last stand. But before the shots landed, the villagers rose. From doorways, from alleys, with old rifles, with stones, with nothing but bare hands. They surged forward, screaming, fighting, refusing to let her fall. The squad regrouped, rallying with them. Together, soldiers and villagers drove the attackers back, pushing them out, breaking the assault. When silence finally returned, it wasn't empty. It was full of breathless relief, of cries of gratitude, of life. She lowered the child gently, brushing dust from her hair. The girl looked up at her with wide, shining eyes. "You saved me." Her throat tightened. She shook her head softly. "No, you saved me." By dusk, the village was secure. The insurgents scattered, defeated, for now. The squad gathered in the square. The captain looked at her, expression softer than she'd ever seen. "They'll tell stories about today, about you." Her chest ached. "I don't want stories." "Doesn't matter," he said. "You gave them hope. You gave us all hope." The villagers crowded closer. Hands reached for hers. Voices rose with her name again, echoing against walls, into the sky. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear. But she didn't. She stood there, silent, steady, letting them see her. And in their eyes, she saw something she hadn't felt in years. Not just burden, not just pain. Belonging. That night she sat beside the corporal again. His eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. "You kept your promise," he whispered. She nodded, tears burning. "I did." He smiled faintly. "Told you, you were never invisible." Her heart broke and healed all at once. She held his hand, watching the stars through the cracked roof, listening to the village breathe. And for the first time, she didn't wish to vanish. The war would go on, she knew that. There would be more battles, more losses, more ghosts. But tonight she had given something to this place. Not just defense, not just protection. A piece of herself. And maybe that was enough. At dawn, as the first light broke over the horizon, she walked the square alone. Children played again, their laughter rising like a fragile song. Women swept doorsteps, men patched walls. Life stubborn and unyielding. She stood in the middle of it all, unseen in the way she once craved, but seen in a way that mattered. Quiet, respected, remembered. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts, and then vanishes back into silence.